It's about damn time. There is no Neptunia game worse than Hyperdimension Neptunia producing perfection. And then Reverse came along and pretty much turned that phrase into the new "There is no war in Ba Sing Se" for the Hyperdimension Neptunia cast. Because after that game, the dip in quality is baffling and the decisions were baffling. Although the same could be said for Super Neptunia RPG, it's this game where things definitely ask questions on what the hell Idea Factory is doing. Like, for instance, they brought in Big Nep from Mega Dimension Neptunia V2, had 3 new goddesses in Jaga, Pippin, and Ridio, each with their own CPU forms. And they even introduced the concept of game making. They even returned Quar and also Go Third. All of that. But when you go to the review, you realize the decisions that were made will make you question Idea Factory's line of thought. As in, Reverse was pretty much the end of the series as we know it. So, with that said, I will be going through the pros and cons of a game that's supposed to be about you making games, but let's just say it's false advertisement. This is Neptunia GameMaker Revolution, and it's as safe as it's gonna get. So with that said, let's get into the chaos, shall we? Oh God, help me, please. Well, this is an Idea Factory game, and in order for us to get the cons out of the way, there's only one thing to do. Bring out the slights! It's been a while since I pulled out the slights of Idea Factory, which will make going through the cons a hell of a lot faster, but there are some I need to exemplify first. And that is the major 4. Or should I say 5? Nope, let me rephrase that. All of them are major. Starting with the grinding. The grinding in RNG goes hand in hand because guess what? That is your game maker mechanic that the game so boasts. You guys remember all of those accessories where you use all the chips and you create accessories that'll give you boost throughout the entirety of the game in the Rebirth series? That's pretty much what this is. That's the whole mechanic. I shit you not. And there's also a timed quest attached to it too, which is entrusted development. What you see is a normal development, stuttering there. But entrusted development is timed quest where certain developers is needed, and moreover, you need other developers to meet a certain base quality threshold just so that you'll be able to create a game that happens to be more than 1 star. Now, this is where the RNG comes in, because also you got to pay attention to all the developers you're using because they can throw in stats that you don't want on your game, making you waste all of your precious time and stats that you happen to collect from sending developers out as scouts in order for you to make better discs. On top of the fact that you have to literally reduce the time of the development. See, the development here is only 2 minutes. It could be shorter than that by the end of the game if you happen to proceed any further. And that also includes you having to use the developers at Scouts to get the materials in order to develop all the genre, not to mention get enough money to pull it off. So yeah, you're not only grinding CP, you're grinding silver coins, and you're grinding to try to up your developers, not to mention you are grinding just so that there'll be RNG to where you might not even get a very high ranking game. Sometimes you'll get a 3-star like what you see, other times you'll get a 4-star, other times, most of the game, you're going to get a 1-star. But apparently fixing all these games and making all these games is what is going to get you a rating at the end of every chapter. I do want to point out, those ratings don't matter. Yeah. You'll understand in a minute, but you're practically going through the entirety of the game just so that you could get equipment so that you'll be able to survive the later battles of the game. But the problem of the matter is, while you're getting the equipment to survive the later battles of the game, it still does not matter because the game levels randomly with the person who is the highest level in the game, and that is pretty much territory of Final Fantasy VIII. And yeah, as you can see, you do have to go through game progression in order for you to max out all of your game categories, and also have the equipment in order for to pull that crap off. But you're not going to be able to do that without having to go through the story. Speaking of the story, oh my god. How did they drop the ball with Big Neptune? I mean, Big Neptune was the highlight of Mega Dimension V2. But here, while she's somehow the smartest one, despite being the dumbest one at the same damn time. And by dumb, I mean the fact that she's the reason all the terrible things happen in game industry. And even though Goldthor may have a point in trying to keep the failure goddesses from coming back and recreating Psychostock, it's Neptune's fault that Psychostock eventually comes back because of Krora's release. God damn it. Oh yeah, and I should mention, all the voices in the game is either barely voiced or voiced on repeat. I will say that also the voice actors have changed for not only Bert but Blonde and pretty much all the cast, so all the voices you remember are gone. Oh, and then there's the battle system. If you probably noticed that the only thing you're going to get is an initiative attack, you think you're going to get an ambush attack when the enemies attack you, right? Wrong. Not going to happen. The only way you're going to lose is if you're under level. And moreover, you're practically going to have to deal with lily ranks. Yay! Because they weren't painful enough in the Rebirth series, nor were they not painful enough in V2. Grinding for lily ranks is a pain in the ass. Oh, it may not be as much of a pain, but it's still a pain in the ass because you gotta grind the levels of everyone in order for to not only get the moves in order for to survive, but you're gonna have to grind to get the lily ranks for everybody so that you will be able to get through. And mostly you're gonna have to explore everything to get all the treasure. I'm not even talking about the bike game because really there's no point in playing the bike game. There's literally no point in doing all of this except for to get to point A to point B. And do you want to know why? It's because of the fact that there's only one ending in the game. Meaning, no matter how many games you make, you will still have only one ending. No matter what the rating is for every single chapter in your sales report, because there's an end of chapter sales report, it doesn't matter. You will still have only one ending. There is two different parts or two different choices in the multiple chapters. It doesn't matter because you still only have one ending. And this might as well be one of the safest Hyperdimension Neptunia games of all time, because you may end up sneaking a few lucky camera shots with the fan service here, but unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is as good as it gets. Even the blonde invert boob jokes is only relegated to one, and that's it. This is as safe as it's going to get, and it doesn't matter because in the grand scheme of things, there's only one ending. So you're going through all the trouble just to get one ending. Spectral Tower, there is no ending to that. You're just basically going through Spectral Tower to level up. And that used to be where challenges are because you're locked in level. Well, not anymore. It's only going to be there for grinding, and grinding is always the main problem with this game. I understand that it's an RPG and sometimes you have to work hard in order to level up, but there is multiple ways of grinding, and grinding will slow the progression down. And sometimes the leveling that you do will be completely out of sync, meaning that since the game picks the character with the highest level, that means bosses can be harder because of how the game operates. And that right there in and of itself is a headache and a half. So yes, it doesn't matter in the end, because you still only got one ending. Hell, and Harfor of all people makes a return. Unfortunately, that doesn't matter because you have only one ending, and you obviously have to defeat her. It just makes me angry at the fact that Nostalgia Bait is the only thing that Idea Factory have going for them, and even then they can't do that right in this game. Nothing they do is right. Almost nothing, because after all, we sort of do have some pros. I would say sort of, but not many. And what about the music? It's recycled along with everything in the game, and all of the buildings and everything else recycled from what I believe the previous games. Needless to say, it doesn't really matter because there's only one way to go from point A to point B, and you'll get tired of it eventually, even with the races. So yeah, I think now would be a good time for us to go to the pros. Well, if there are any. Well, there's no DLC, so yay. But I can't think of any other pros, so on with the rating, shall we? With the pros and cons compiled, it is now time for the rating for this game. For a game that's called GameMaker, oh, it's gonna get an award alright. Not the one it expects. Although it's not as bad to get a con, it is bad enough to get something else.
Boo! You suck!
This game is absolutely lazy. They literally had no faith in this game, which is why they held off on getting DLC for it. there's just not much going for it at all. I mean, for a game that's called GameMaker, you think that you would actually make games, and instead you're making equipment. And that's all you're doing. It's an overglorified crafting system. And not even a good one at that, because of the RNG. Folks, I said earlier that there was no worse games than Producing Perfection and also Reverse, but this is damn close. What a disappointment. And what a terrible game. Is there potential? No, because the game was rushed. You could tell within the design that the game was literally rushed. Though the characters introduced to it was supposed to look good, it doesn't matter when the rest of the game is rushed. And how you just use Gold Third the way you did is it's just criminal. There's nothing more to say. It gets a Dean Takahashi award, and let it be known that Reverse is literally the end of the Hyperdimension Neptunia series as we know it, because the only thing we're getting is a PlayStation exclusive Rebirth trilogy. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I've said my piece on this game, and goddamn, I'm exhausted. With that said, see you in the next review, and take care.